What is your favorite moment from the Star Wars franchise? That impossible question began our worship planning meeting this last week. My fondest memories are on old VHS tapes of A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, watching their unforgettable scenes for the first time with my dad on our tiny basement television. But a newer memory emerged as another favorite this week, and that is the appearance of Grogu, who sits upon my head right now, affectionately known, of course, as Baby Yoda. The uncovering of his egg-shaped crib, known as a hover pram, unveils a level of cuteness I almost can't handle. But Grogu's introduction in the first chapter of The Mandalorian also represents a kind of hinge between past and future. A callback to the original Green Jedi and the well-worn familiar paths that led here. And then the introduction of this new mysterious character, causing us to wonder where the story is heading. Indeed, this is a threshold moment. The Empire has fallen, and how new life in the galaxy will take shape remains unrevealed. For all the discomfort that accompanies times of chaotic uncertainty, there also comes a once-absent willingness to reimagine things. Reimagine and move forward into the unknown in new ways. This is precisely the place our Eastertide series invites us to inhabit for a while, specifically around our deeply held beliefs and theologies, looking over well-worn paths that brought us to this place on our spiritual journeys. So many of us here found pieces of those beliefs puzzling, or we found the whole program stopped working altogether, or worse, we experienced it as a source of woundedness. Sadly, our doubts in what we were told was infallible truth meant that we were questioning God, or that our faith was weak, or that we just needed to pray harder to understand. Our experience of belonging and community and family are often connected to believing a certain way. So naturally, we go along. Maybe we recognize that uniformity of belief seemed more about control and power, but we felt helpless to change it or challenge it, so questions remained unspoken. And when we did finally share them, we were predictably excluded. Or when we deconstructed theologies, or could no longer reconcile our experience of the world and of God and of ourselves with systems of belief that were harming us and others, we had to walk away. Sadly and understandably, many of us don't get beyond that place. Yet maybe we still sense something compelling at the core of faith, an irresistible ember that is love, whose tenacious refusal to be extinguished insists that new life comes from endings, even death. We want to believe this love doesn't remove its glow from us amid our questions and struggles and fears, despite what we were told. So we keep drawing near, hoping to hear affirmations that the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty, hoping to hear that a living faith is an evolving faith, and hoping to hear that we don't have to check our brains at the door before coming into church. Welcome to the community here at the Cathedral, where we affirm these loudly and often. Reverend Laura began this series last week questioning the doctrine of original sin, which is not in the Bible, by the way, and the consequences of insisting that humanity is inherently evil, in need of saving. Theologians from the 4th century on thankfully challenged that belief with what they called original blessing or original goodness, insisting that because we are created in the image of God, which is good, so our inherent nature is good too. An objective truth, irrevocable, unchangeable from the moment of our birth. Or as Yoda said, luminous beings, all of us, we are. Jesus, then, comes not to rescue us from ourselves, but rather to reveal and return us to that truth of ourselves, a truth whose loving ember burns at the heart of every life. Or as the great, recently deceased liberation theologian Gustavo Gutierrez said, if humanity, each person, is the living dwelling place of God, we meet God in our encounter with others. We encounter God in the commitment to the historical process of humankind. If our bodies are good and not merely temporary, sinful shells that our souls discard and flee someday, then how we treat our bodies now matters. How we treat the bodies of others matters. How we treat the body politic matters. This historical process of humankind is, in part, to ensure that we don't reduce beloved bodies to expendable means of selfish ends, or make of bodies exploitable means of production, or allow luminous beings to be reduced only to their bodies, whom we can exclude or separate from families or deny health care, or bodies upon whom we can inflict brutality or solitary confinement or capital punishment or bombs or starvation. We need to foster beliefs in humanity that anchor us to each other, cultivate beliefs that insist on our interconnection and interdependence, beliefs that necessarily put us on a collision course with the needs of others. What if a chief concern of faith is the necessary reteaching of things of their loveliness? To echo the poet Galway Kinnell, this is the liberating goal of original goodness. It was also one of George Lucas's motives for including the Force in the Star Wars movies. Lucas imagined the Force as a universal cosmic energy that incorporates and inhabits and is available to all living things. Lucas claimed that the Force was inherently good, inspiring good in the world. It is not morally ambiguous, though creatures can employ it to justify hurtful desires and actions. On the contrary, writes John McDowell in The Gospel According to Star Wars, becoming one with the Force is a journey into becoming responsible for the well-being of the galaxy, or more personally, one's galactic neighbor. This means that the virtues of co-responsibility and compassion and so on are ultimately the truth of life. The Force is about dependence and creative self-giving, not autonomy and possessiveness. The Force echoes what theologian Elia Delio wrote. Love is the whole structure of the universe. And evolution, then, is the process of love becoming more conscious. So, where does the S word fit into such a cosmo-theological vision? I am speaking of sin, of course, or phantom menace, if you prefer. Well, just as some twist the Force for harmful ends, so people do with God, confusing their own wills, their own destructive impulses with God's, which are only ever, only always love. One of my favorite definitions of sin comes from theologian Cornelius Plantinga, who said that sin is the culpable disturbance of shalom. The culpable disturbance of shalom. Do we know this Hebrew word, shalom? God's loving intention for the wholeness, health, and peace of the world. Sin is the disturbance of this loving force, a sometimes intentional and other times unintentional inhibiting of life's flourishing within ourselves, between heart and mind, between us and others, between us and the earth, between us and other life forms. Deepening our relationship with the divine is, in part, a coming to terms with our own disturbances of shalom, so that our lives might become more loving, more one with love, so that the qualities of peace and harmony become more persistent and present realities. Part of living, of course, is missing the mark, but this doesn't change our good nature, our true selves, which is love. And it certainly doesn't change God's love for us. It might profoundly obscure that good image. Think of Kylo Ren or Darth Vader, or any who persists in destructive harm and hatred and who abuses power at the expense of others. But there is no one that lies beyond love's power to redeem and restore. This is the heart of Jesus and a tension at the heart of Star Wars. At one point, Obi-Wan Kenobi remarks of Vader, "He is more machine than man." And yet, Luke Skywalker believed there was not only some good left in his father, but that there was also a way in which the good might yet lead him to reclaim his life. But it all depended on Vader recognizing the evil systems and impulses in which he was entangled, and then having the courage to throw that manifestation of evil down the reactor shaft. Owning our personal and collective hindrances to shalom awakens us to where damaging ways are trying to give way for new life to emerge. Or as Jesus put it, unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains a single seed. But if it dies, it yields much fruit. He is speaking metaphorically, of course, speaking of an authentic spiritual transformation. We cannot embrace the new if our hands are clinging too tightly to anything. It is only when our hands, and by extension our hearts and minds and spirits, are open to receive, that new understandings and truths and possibilities for life might be grasped. Jedi are warned against holding too tightly to any one thing, any one person, any one idea. For Jedi and for us, there is a need to relinquish expectations, prejudices, and control in order for the new to come. And yet letting go is hard, whether to an overly defended ego or to a long-held belief. Letting go can feel like a death, because it is. And yet vital to remember, suggests author and philosopher Bayo Akomolafi, is that endings are fields, spaces where death and birth wrestle side by side. The ending of a world isn't always a sudden cliff, but a series of thresholds, a practice of shedding and becoming, sites on which to let go and to grasp a new way. Endings are always happening, and especially present in our world today. But worlds are also always beginning, whether those endings are forced upon us or undertaken by us. The resurrection story we tell in the season of Easter doesn't happen because the old world was repaired. It happens because love refused to stay buried. Resurrection didn't patch an old system. It began something utterly new, and it began in wounded bodies, in broken places, amid the incredible and absurd, and among people who weren't quite ready, but who chose to walk into that new life anyway. Those who with Ashoka decided it can't be just about fighting what we hate, but about saving what we love. Those who, like R2-D2, choose to stay plugged in, stay connected to the love pulsing throughout the cosmos and throughout our being, and persist, no matter how sandy the planet or how determined the battle droids. We, like that affable droid R2-D2, writes Eric Clayton, carry within us inherent goodness and life and hope. So we find ways to carry on together, especially as turmoil has engulfed our republic. We have something within us the galaxy needs. We are someone's, perhaps a lot of someone's, hope for a better present and future. We have the power to discern more loving, more life-giving ways, and then to choose the next right thing. When we do this, no matter how significant the chaos around us, no matter how insignificant our action may feel, we become a part of something greater. The whole universe pulses with divine energy, this force of love, this inevitable wave of goodness, and we are a part of it. We can sense it and tap into it and embody it. We can also question it, reimagine it, find ever new, vitalizing expressions of this endlessly knowable mystery that we call God. So what will we choose? What decisions will bring us closer to that greater good we hope to realize in our world, to justice and peace and beauty and wonder? Let's let go together and find out.